What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope all's good wherever you are. In this video, we're going to watch our boy Charlie Kirk debate a bunch of students on campus about how to make education great again. I'll say one thing about Charlie Kirk. Out of all the people I've commented on this channel, reacted to, he is the most calm as a cucumber he is out of everybody. Now you see the guys like Matt Walsh and Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro, they're calm too, but you can see it in their face that they're kind of irritated maybe a little bit. Charlie doesn't crack. He's always smiling, and then he just kills them with facts. Let's get into the video.
How will you judge teachers? Because you were talking about like paying bad teachers.
It's a great question. That's a substantive question.
Yeah, because like that's a good idea, right? You want to
so do you know what what the Nordic countries do? It's one of the few things they do right because they can fire teachers almost instantaneously. They let teachers grade teachers. Bad teachers will root out bad teachers very quickly.
Aren't the Nordic countries socialists?
Oh no, they actually have freer economies than we do. Norway, Sweden, Finland are ranked higher on the World Economic Freedom Index.
So we should look like Norway?
Wait,
that's my argument.
Part of America should look more like Norway, part of it shouldn't. For example,
Why do you stand up for Sanders?
so for example, how about this? Sweden has full school choice, so you all support that, right? Norway has full school choice. You know that, right?
Yeah, because they're
okay, so you support school choice now. I'm glad we got that out of the way.
I mean, they're taxed like 60%.
That's why I disagree with.
By
the way, so Norway, Sweden, Finland, they nationalize their oil reserves. I don't agree with that. You know, they also don't have a standing military. I don't agree with that. There's some things we can learn from the Nordic country. There's some things they do abysmally wrong, such as their 60 to 70% tax rate.
Why is that wrong?
What?
Why is that wrong?
Because I believe you should have a right to your time and your earnings.
Sweden's also like a majority irreligious country, but you're like all about, you know,
again, that would be something that would be something I disagree with. Do I have to nuance my arguments even more? There's some things they do right, there's some things they do wrong.
Entirely lacks nuance. I just want to point that out.
Okay, how is this not nuance? There's some things they do right, there's some things they do wrong.
Well, but
that's the definition of nuance.
You just said that because we support, you know, socialist policies in Norway and Sweden, that we support school choice. You just generalized, which is entirely lacks nuance.
So tell me what you don't support school choice then.
I don't support school choice.
Oh, okay. So then you do not support the Swedish education model. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
That is correct.
Got
because
it.
I can have a nuanced conversation.
So tell me why you think that. Tell me why you think a minority family should not be able to send their kid to a better school in, say, North Houston.
Because all public schools should be funded to the same. Jesus Christ, my dude. Okay. Because.
I mean, like all schools. I mean, so you're saying they're better? Why are they better? Okay, they're better because they have higher tax rates. So wealthier people live there, so they have higher taxes that go in, and more money will make the school better.
So
the reason that those minority families want to go to better schools is because those better schools are private and charter schools that are privately funded. Because our public schools are not properly funded.
So okay, it depends on what city and state you're talking about, but if you look at the price per educating a pupil in the state of Texas, a private school will do it for about $8,000 a year, a public school will do it for about $22,000 per year. Yet the student going to that $22,000 a year, he gets absolute crap for it, because the number one metric that matters in education is not class size, it's not funding, it's quality of teacher. Every study internationally will show you it's the quality of teacher you put in the classroom. And
What's the metric for that, though?
How do you create a quality teacher?
Bingo. How do you do that? You pay good teachers more and you fire bad ones. All
How
of you.
School districts get money?
How can you attract good teachers if you're still paying teachers? Like
I just said you pay them more.
Yeah, you pay them more. Exactly.
Pay them more.
How
do you pay them more when you get
that money?
You fire bad teachers.
But
and by the way, you know where a lot of the government, you know where a lot of the waste is in the public education. A lot of the waste.
The amount of teachers has to remain the same.
No, it doesn't. That's the thing. Class size can go up because class size has not been shown as an accurate depiction of a student's likelihood to graduate or not drop out. It's the quality of teacher. A quality teacher can handle a 15-person class to a 25-person class, according to the Brookings Institution, which is a left-leaning study.
They actually up the taxing on housing in the areas, and that upped housing tax then goes directly towards teacher salary.
I'm familiar with that.
Then why is it that you're arguing you have to fire the bad teachers instead of incentivizing good teachers?
No. What they're talking about here, I think a big part of that comes from busting down these teachers' units. You bust them down to size. Because they're not operating in the interest of the students. They're operating in the interest of the teachers, obviously. That's why they're called teachers' unions. And when you have teachers' unions bargaining with the states for fewer hours worked and higher pay and smaller class sizes, if you want to really make an argument about what the student needs, you got to make an argument on the behalf of the students and not the teachers. So there should be a students' lobbying group of some sort lobbying Congress or legislature. It shouldn't be teachers lobbying on the behalf of that. Public sector's union, I'll speak for North America alone because I feel like I know a lot about the topic, are a serious problem.
Because if you get rid of the waste, you reappropriate the savings towards paying good teachers more.
There's a stock of well-qualified,
So,
really well-experienced
all right, so
teachers in the United States,
let me tell you
don't
more
have that.
about.
We have a teacher
First of all, we
shortage.
have too many school districts in this country. Probably way too many in Texas. I need to look at the numbers. Second, most of the money goes towards administration, not towards actually helping kids. So we have these vice president of deans. Too many school districts, or the administration?
Too much towards the administration.
Okay, so over the last 30 years, an objective analysis, I'll talk for Illinois, for example, because I know Illinois quite well, because that's where I'm from and I know the data, is that the amount that they're spending actually towards education of the student, towards administration, the administrative part of education went from 4% to well over 18%. That's an extraordinary increase. I'm sure all of you know there were administrators in your school, maybe not, maybe your school ran perfectly, where they did nothing all day long. They were compliant, they were shuffling papers, and I know all of you have had a bad teacher or 2 or 5 that should not have been involved in teaching, and I'm sure all of you, like me, had a public education teacher that was great, that deserved to be paid more, and was paid the same as a mediocre teacher because of our tenure rules that the public sector teacher unions implemented. So I think that this is more broad-based bipartisan consensus, because I don't think it has to be red or blue. I think it's just more common sense. And yes, I will actually say that we have an obligation to educate our citizens. Whatever the hell you want to call me for saying that, I think we have an obligation to educate people.
So taxing for essential purposes for the greater good of society is good.
Yes.
Okay, so why doesn't that apply
Because
to everything else?
So why doesn't it apply to education?
I just said it does on a hyper-local level, because it's the obligation of first and foremost the family to educate, secondly the community, not a federal
When
government
it's
to
a
educate
hyper-local
citizens.
level, doesn't that disenfranchise people who are in a very poor area?
That's exactly why you should have a voucher system to let them go to better areas, which is something
But
that
then
Democrats
you're just
bitterly oppose.
depleting communities of people, and you're not enriching the
So
communities.
Florida
What
is a
happens to
great.
the people that geographically aren't able to go to a different school.
or that don't get the
Okay,
voucher.
so you allow a market to happen. So what happens is the bad schools will then have one of two options. They can improve or stay neutral, actually have 3 options, or get worse. And you've seen in Florida, when Florida implemented a voucher system, they were like ranked 38th in education. Now the last study shows them 7th, the 12th,
yeah,
the
because
3rd.
the cream of those students left the public
So-
school
so-
system.
so
leaving
you
the
agree-
others
so
to
let's-
significantly worse.
let's have a
The
moment.
value of the private school system and the value of
Well,
scholarship.
the price per pupil to educate is far lower in a private school than a public school. So you have to ask yourself why. Why is a private school able to do it better for less? Why is that?
It's not better for less.
Well,
It's just
I mean-
they charge $30,000 to $40,000.
No, but the price, the price per individual to actually educate in a private school, like a Catholic school, for example, in Texas is anywhere between $8,000 to $10,000 a year. For a public
Because they're
school,
not-
it's a lot more than that. I'm sorry, what? But you have to ask yourself the question: why is it that private schools are able to do it for less?
Wait, I have a question though. So you're saying we need to pay teachers more, but we
Yes.
already spend too much, you say. So how can we pay?
You know, well, first of all, it's because of the public sector teacher unions that are artificially boosting these salaries for teachers that don't teach and that are mediocre, and the good teachers not able to earn more.
But also imposing these kinds of requirements on teachers only detracts from their ability to teach.
Say that again.
Imposing these kinds of like star testing requirements on teachers.
No, I don't
isn't
think.
helping their
I totally
ability to
agree. So
teach.
how do you find bad teachers? You do what the Nordic countries do. You have teachers grade teachers. It's worked
What
wonderfully.
do you think about Taylor Swift being a Democrat?
I think she's a fool.
Okay, no, elaborate on. Like, why is she a fool? Because like, I'm sorry, the alt-right was up her
I'm sorry, what?
The alt-right was like up for a real long time.
Who's the alt-right? Am I part of the alt-right?
I don't know.
Okay.
But like, you know what I mean? You know the 4chan people, they were like, she's the Aryan queen. So what are your thoughts about Taylor Swift being a Democrat?
I mean, I think she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Do you still listen to Shake It Off?
I never have.
You've never listened?
I've probably heard it once or twice. It's not exactly.
You
I'm a
know
big
All Too
Kanye West
Well?
fan. I'm a big Kanye West fan.
It's, okay.
Wait, going back to the school teacher
Yes.
pay thing, like, so I guess the average teacher salary is between $40,000 to $50,000.
Depends on where you go. So like
For the state of Texas, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say is like a good target for good teachers?
80 to 100,000 a year.
And you think we can achieve that with property taxes
Because
the way they are right now and think teachers?
Maybe not. And again, if there was a market, so certain charter schools, certain ones pay their teachers in Texas upwards to $60,000 to $70,000 a year.
Yeah.
Some.
Yeah.
So would you support
And within the public school
I'll get
system,
to this one.
within the public school system, if you're a good teacher, you can eventually attain up to 70 to 80K. But the problem
Yeah,
is, and
that'd be
I
great.
notice with a lot of good teachers, is that they love teaching, but they're not incentivized to teach because they're not getting paid
That's
enough.
exactly right. I totally agree. So we have very smart driven people that are driven away from teaching because we don't pay teachers enough. Because there is, I have yet to hear an objectively good argument that you should pay every teacher the same.
Yeah, of course.
Because there's going to be certain teachers that work harder, that get there earlier. I've experienced it, that are smarter.
Any job, if you
right, exactly.
Same,
you should have a meritocracy of some sort. Now the question is, how do you grade it? Well, again,
and the question is also implementation. So
totally.
I mean, it's great to say that, like, yeah, I want that to happen, but if you look at like the metrics right now, we can't even manage a system like this, which is currently flawed.
So that's why
People
a market
on the left
works.
And right would
yes.
agree.
So a market would be a voucher system where parents become the indicator of the market, because parents know best. I think we all agree more times than not. Maybe you had a bad experience in your life. I don't want to speak for you.
At the same time, like these individual parents, I think a lot of what the argument is about like disenfranchised communities or whatever is that individual parents sometimes don't have the resources to pay for these really high-class schools.
No doubt.
Well, Charlie's right about the charter schools. The data's out there. You can go look this up. The results are tangible. Regardless of parental background, regardless of where you're from, these charter schools are effective. They produce tangible results. There's so many different studies that you can go look at on this stuff. The problem with the charter schools that we have is that the waiting list is very long. Some charter schools have 20,000, 30,000 students waiting to get into them. So what do we do as a society, right, in this current moment in time to help these students? Well, providing more school choices is one thing. The fact that we're putting an enormous amount of taxpayer dollars into the public school system to pay off those public sectors union, I think parents should be able, in some way, shape, or form, to direct their students and their money to where they want to send their children to go to school. The idea that you're locked into the school district where you live is absurd. Absolutely absurd. Why should you have to? I mean, people have cars. There's means of transportation. There's subways. There's buses. We've had cars in North America for a really long time. The notion that you have to live in like a downtrodden area, and maybe you have the money, right, to send your kids to maybe not a private school, but maybe you have the money to send your kids to a charter school for a discount. But you can't send your kids to these charter schools because they're across the county line. You have to send your kids to a public school, like that young girl was saying. If there's no charter schools available, that's a restriction of choice, and that should obviously be fought as hard as possible. More parental choices is always going to be better. I'm someone who really believes in Alex de Tocqueville's description of the United States is great, simply because we have, in North America, all of these institutions that are outside government. If the only two choices we had were atomistic individualism and government involvement, there would be a lot of government involvement, because you do need collections of people to be able to do these sorts of things, to have more schools, to better the school system. This is why I think we have to rebuild our social institutions. The halfway step there, in my opinion, is something like school vouchers, where the government says, well, you can direct it any way you choose, or the government says something like you can start a charter school. But what we don't want is we don't want it to be subject to the public sector's union in whatever area we live in. This would be a much better use of government money and a more ideal solution, in my opinion. If we were creating the system from scratch, be either charter schools or public vouchers, any of that. Now, the ideal situation would be the people would move towards membership in particular communities where they can join the schools that they want to join on a private basis. The public schools are run horribly, terribly. Seniority should not be any recommendation of pay level. Why are people getting paid more just because they've been somewhere longer if they don't do a good job? The idea that you should be unfireable because you've been working at a school longer is absolutely asinine. These unions are killing the education system. And add woke professors to that list as well. This wouldn't work in any other industry. We should have incentives and structures for good teachers, just like Charlie was saying. I forget the lady in DC, I think Michelle Ray, she tried to put something like this in place. She tried to create incentives and better structures for teachers to improve these schools, and guess what? She got freaking rejected by teachers union. These people are not there to help the students, they're there to help themselves. The DC Council tried to take her down, just like in Los Angeles. You get paid more to teach in Beverly Hills than you do in like East LA or South LA. And that's absurd. Why? You should probably actually be paid more to teach in somewhere like South LA or East LA. It's a harder freaking job. Beverly Hills gotta be easy. I would say that's probably just a bunch of parents who are wealthy. Now, I may be stereotyping, but come on. These people are wealthy, and they also happen to spend an awful lot of time in general on their kids' education, because wealthy people realize the importance of having a higher education for their children. If we're going to start talking about redistribution of educational resources, we should be incentivizing people to go into harder jobs, which would mean go into areas where you don't necessarily have two parents in the home. Anyways.
Also, I live in a county. It's the smallest county in Texas. We don't have any sort of charter school. And we were also the richest county in Texas, but like our public
because
schools.
of oil and gas or what?
I think it's just really tiny, and there's a bunch of like.
I'm guessing oil and gas if it's a small.
No, there's no oil or gas.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, I don't know why.
Yeah.
But that being said, there is no charter school, and our public schools like aren't great. So like when you
how
make
many
that
districts
argument,
do you have though?
We only have one. It's Rockwall County. We have
Okay.
Rockwall ISD. So.
The rural argument is tough.
It's not rural though. We're east of Dallas. We are a suburb.
And you're the smallest county in
We are the
Texas.
smallest county. We're
Do
north
you think your school district works?
No.
Okay. So you're not rural, but you're isolated. I'm trying to
No,
understand.
we're not isolated.
Well, then yeah, school choice would work just
We're the
fine in your
richest-
area.
But we don't have charter schools, so I don't understand how this argument is working.
Well, the argument is to build.
The argument is to incentivize the construction and creation of more of them. And so when you have people waiting outside of the line in the Bronx, black families that wait for days to try to have a chance to get literally a lottery ball to be able to get their kid to go to a charter school, you know our public education system is a joke and a disaster. And so the question should not be how to throw more money towards a broken system. It's where is education working in America? Where is it working? Well, there are certain schools that do it really, really, really well, and they do it well for less. And those are charter schools, and those are private schools. Some private schools, and there's some public schools, but usually the public schools that do it really well are way overfunded. Like this public school I went to is one of the top schools in America. We pay our teachers like $150,000 a year. It's insane, and we got new equipment and new technology.
You're also making
it's
the
stupid.
argument. You're also making the argument that like we need to pay the teachers more. We need to get rid of bad teachers, which I'm listening to. But my school district, if you go on the Texas Tribune website, you can look up the salaries. Mm-hmm. And in my school district, the teachers are paid really, 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 really well. That being said,
what does that mean? Like, what does well mean? Like, I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, it's Texas.
Give me a number.
So like 70,000 as well.
Okay. Texas. I mean, so maybe that's why. Does your school district do well relatively?
Well, like at UT, there's like I would say UT is the best university. In Texas.
I would probably agree.
Besides Rice, it's the best public university.
I would agree with that.
But that being said, that's dramatic. Anyway, but that being said, shoot, I lost my regard. I'm getting there. Okay. That being said, there's only like 3 people per year that go to UT, whereas people from the Woodlands or Plano, there's like a ton of people.
Yeah, but that's only one metric, I guess you could say, for the excellence of a school, right? I'd say graduation rate. We
have a high graduation.
Okay, there you go. That's good. How many students in your graduating class ended up going to 4-year university?
I can't.
Those are the numbers you got.
I'm saying it's really low. I'm saying our teachers are paid well, so
that's a metric. I don't think.
Do you support like people going to college even if it's not necessarily a fruitful result?
I'm a living example that not everyone needs to go to college. So.
Everybody should.
No. I'm a living example that not everyone needs to go to college. Trust me.
Because I mean, right now there's a lot of people that are like pushing that when.
No, I think we need more 2 years in vocational training and more community colleges. I don't think 4-year universities are always the solution.
Do you think we should provide free education in colleges like the Swedish countries do?
Nothing is free. They pay for it in high taxes, so no, I don't believe in that.
Yeah, but all of their citizens such as
I'm sorry?
all of the people go to college and have better outcomes and income because of it.
So if you think something is broken and expensive now, just wait until it's free. I mean, the problem with higher education
but
is...
it's not broken and expensive there. It's free for everybody and it's working.
Well, they have a totally nationalized higher education model. We don't. We have private colleges. We have... I'm sorry?
The public school is free, and you don't propose charging people to go to school.
Public school is not free. You pay it in property taxes.
Yeah, you pay for everything in taxes.
No, that's what I'm saying. So stop saying it's free. There's a cost of entry.
When it's free, then it goes
No, I know.
to
So if you think that so for example, Bernie Sanders, let's just take that for example. It's going to be one of the biggest handouts to higher education you can ever imagine. So let's talk about higher education. First of all, we ask our high school seniors, where are you going to school, not why are you going to school. That's ridiculous. We have way too many kids going to 4-year colleges. I'm sure all of you that are juniors and seniors have seen kids drop out of this place that ended up going to community college, ended up going back to another school. They should never have been here in the first place.
They had to work a full-time job.
Well, that's one reason, or maybe some it's just that wasn't right for them. I'm sure all of you could think of 1 or 2 examples, maybe not. I know plenty from my own personal experience. Number two, we have a federal student loan industry that is more focused on getting all of you to borrow the most amount of money as possible, as quickly as possible. FAFSA is totally screwed up. It's totally ass backwards. Third of all, the administration in UT earns way too much money. It's way too big. That could be condensed by probably half. And I don't even know the data, and I could be I'd be challenged.
Audit, you'd mean.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would totally, I mean, exactly, audit everything.
No, I agree with
Transparency is always the answer. It shouldn't be political. And the third thing, the third biggest problem in higher education, I'm sure all of you are being forced to take classes that have no relevancy to your degree or to your major. College should be done in 3 years, not 4 years. This is something we can learn from Sweden. Sweden does college in 3 years. That's another thing they do right. Yeah, England does it in 3 years. Germany does it in 3 years. The idea that you have to have 4 years by mandate is ridiculous. And all of you could save 25% off the top on your college experience by doing it in 3 years instead of 4. You just save 25% on housing, 25% on everything by having a whole extra year to enter the workforce. So make college 3 years, and I think that's something that both parties should be able to agree with. You do all that before you make it free, and then you can start to have a conversation, have more federal mandates and subsidies. But the reason education gets more expensive, the reason higher education has gone up by 312% over the last 10 years, and all of you are feeling it one way or the other, is that we keep pumping cheap federal dollars into the system, and there's no accountability whatsoever where the money's being spent, the classes you have to take, anything whatsoever, and you're just being forced. You got to take these classes. Well, I'm an engineering major. Still, you have to take 5 humanities. What? Like, why are you forcing me to borrow money to take classes that have no relevancy to my degree or major? If you want to take them voluntarily, but those are some things we have to talk about with higher education.
So here's my thoughts on this. What studies will tend to show you is that the school quality itself can contribute to which college you're going to go to or don't go to. But if the school isn't any good, that's not necessarily going to lead to more dropouts. What leads to a high dropout rate, we've talked a lot about this on this channel, is the parents in the home telling the kids that they need to go to school. Parents advocating for higher education. Also having both parents in the home. Fatherless homes are a big issue. These leftists, they like to talk about minorities, but in communities that highly value education, like think about the Asian community, they tend to have schools that mirror that. And the same thing is true for family. Most good people, you'll do anything for your kids' education. Maybe that means you need to move to a new school district. Maybe that means you need to send your kids to a parochial school. Maybe that means you need to work an extra job on the side. So again, I think that there's many ways that you can improve the education system. I think vouchers are a great idea for improving the education system. I think that privatizing more charter schools, like Charlie mentioned here, is a great way of improving the education system. Going back to what these lefties like to say about more impoverished communities, well, if you look at impoverished communities in the United States where education is highly pushed, where it's stressed, people have been able to overcome initial poverty and reach great heights because of that. If you're going to talk about minority communities, obviously the one that you're going to think of probably is the Asian community. It's just the single highest earning community by household numbers, by household income in America. And a lot of these people are coming from utterly impoverished places like China, like Vietnamese, like Korea. Only a few decades ago, they were the poorest class in America. Now they're the richest class in America. Why do you think that is? Education is valued. And if education is valued, they're able to succeed. So yeah, there's a few things you can do to the education system, but I think the number one thing that we could do as parents is we can encourage our kids to stay in school to ensure that they don't drop out. People don't just drop out of school because, oh yeah, well, school's bad. Well, right now, you can make a case, but they don't drop out because of that or because it's boring. They drop out because they don't think that school is important or because they've been told that school is ineffective or because it's just not highly valued by some of their friends. And look, if you're having a gender studies major, maybe that's true. But it's not the case for every major that you can take in university. Not all universities are created equal. So I do think that the biggest responsibility when it comes to higher education falls on the parents. You got to instill that into your kids. My parents instilled that in me when I was younger. My father was a big advocate of higher education. Thank God he died before all this woke nonsense, because, well, that would have done it. But because of how I was raised, I firmly believe in the personal responsibility that parents have to make sure that their students, their children, I should say, are successful. Because think about it, say you're in 3rd grade and your parents are not teaching you how to read, they're just putting you in front of the iPad or social media. They're not doing these things to help you, to encourage you, to make learning more fun. You won't be well equipped to go to middle school or high school, potentially graduate high school. A lot of kids these days suffer because of the inadequacies of the parents. And that's when you get issues like changing the school doesn't really help that, right? It's not a matter at that point, if your parents didn't prepare you properly, it's not a matter of changing the teacher. Or if the teacher was better, that's not going to fix the problem with the kid. The same way these, trans people that we talk about, changing your body is not going to fix the problem with the mind. A lot of times, I firmly believe it's a parental issue. And that raises the question of truancy. I'm somebody who believes that the state should not be deciding for the parents how the kids are educated. That's like, let's assume the parents want to educate the kids. I think that you can have truancy requirements against parents. Parents need to send their kids to school. You can't just have some bum school. Look, you can homeschool, but you can't just have your kids not go to school. But parents need to demonstrate that the kids are actually getting educated. And again, that could be homeschooling, that could be at a school, but in the same way that you would send child protective services for parents who are not feeding their kids. So who would take care of that responsibility? Well, that's a state responsibility, and I have no issues with that. So you give that part to the state. You need to protect the kid's life, their liberty, and kids can't protect themselves. This goes back to the whole trans thing that we're always on about. We have a duty to protect these young people. Anyways, that is just my thoughts on it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Charlie Kirk killed it again. Smash that thumbs up button if you're still listening to me at this point. Catch you all in the next video. Peace out, everybody.